Supervisor Dickinson, good morning.
Could you say your last name one more time for me?
It's Dickinson, Supervisor Dickinson.
Thank you.
Are you available tomorrow?
I would be available.
So if we want to finalize the
I gotta run in Eagle River tomorrow. Warren will be. We'll get it from.
Okay. All right, I'll see you Jerry. If not, I can.
I assume you're.
Supposed to be.
The only good thing is, you only got. Only good thing.
Don't get us started on the numbers.
I just said, you know, at first I gave you the rules.
I did, thank you.
I can tell them.
And that's the weekend.
Morning, how are you? Good. Yeah, crouch. Thank you. Really excited. All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Marathon County Infrastructure Committee meeting. It is Thursday, May 9th, 9 a.m. Welcome, everybody. As this is our first meeting, I think it would be a good idea, as part of our call the meeting to order, to go around the room for introductions. I'll start. Randy Pfeifrick, representing District 15, which is a portion of Cronenwetter, chair for the committee. Welcome. Go ahead.
Jerry, just on District 5, northeast side of the city of Wausau.
Tom Seibert, District 27, southwestern part of Marathon County.
Brandon Jensen, District 38, representing Maine Participating Park Building.
Chris Dickinson, on the phone, if you can hear me.
Yep.
District 29, just north of Tom Seibert.
Jim Griesbach, Marathon County Highway Commissioner.
Kevin Lang, Deputy Director for the Highway Department.
Dave Mack, I'm the Planning Manager and Land Information Manager for Marathon County.
Aaron Anklum, I'm the Transportation Planner for CPZ and the Wausau MPO.
Erin Andrews, I'm the Broadband Coordinator for Marathon County.
Good morning, Jerry Klein. I'm the Director of the City County IT Commission.
Lance Leonard, Marathon County Administration.
Todd Troy, representing the Wausau Wheelers.
And I'm Dan Adzik. I'm the Deputy Corporation Counsel, and I'm here for Mike Pierner today.
Morning. You want to just introduce yourself? Grab the.
Chris Volk, County Supervisor 23.
All right, welcome everybody. Next on our agenda is Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is public comment. We have one member of the public signed up for public comment. If you want, if we can get you a microphone, if you could stand up, introduce yourself, including name and address, please.
Todd Troy.
Todd Troy, I live at 226671 Swan Avenue in Rib Mountain. I'm here to represent the interest of cyclists. I'm president of the Wausau Wheelers, have been for like 7 years. I had a meeting the other day with Kevin Lang and Jim Griesbach at their offices, and we wanted to bring attention to the concerns about bicyclists that use the county roads. I don't want to take forever here, but I've taken my bike many places when I go on vacation in the country, and we have some of the nicest county roads to ride on. And, you know, it's an attractive feature of the area for people to be able to do that here. And that's something that they don't have in other places. And rumble strips can be very hazardous to cross for a cyclist. You know, the deeper they're milled, creates more jarring. It's a substantial problem for the less skilled, and the faster you go, the more dangerous they can become. The proposed project, the projects that they're looking at adding those shoulder rumble strips to on KK, X, and J this year. We had a long discussion the other day, and I guess we're not going to continue to oppose the installation on Highway KK because they have more than 4 feet that they can leave us on the shoulder. I had given a couple of papers to Randy just this morning, and I'll follow up with email versions that can be distributed. And we also gave those to James and Kevin the other day. But they are white papers purchased by the, published by the Federal Highway Administration and the American Association for State Transportation Highway Officials. It's got a lot of different letters in it. But both of those papers say the same thing. The guidelines will tell you that they don't recommend putting shoulder rumble strips in areas where you can't provide at least 4 feet of pavement to the right of the rumble strip. And that's our biggest concern, is that we have adequate space. You know, we're the most vulnerable traffic on that roadway, and we'd rather not get hit by a car. In cases where you've got a guardrail or a curb, then they recommend more. They recommend 5 feet, but 4 feet of clear pavement to the right. That leaves us room to navigate around debris and other things like that. But we don't want to get trapped in a really narrow lane. The highways X and J projects, from what I've been told, neither one of those has enough space. So we'll continue to ask that they're not put there. That's all I have.
Thank you. With that, we'll close public comment, move on to item 4 on our agenda, approval of March 7th, 2024 Infrastructure Committee meeting minutes. What's your pleasure? We have a motion by Stoibert, second by Gisselman. Any comments, corrections? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Anybody opposed?
Aye.
All right, then we have a unanimous approval of meeting minutes from March 7th. Item number 5 on our agenda is policy issues, discussion, and potential committee determination. Item A, Marathon County policy on mailboxes and plowing damage. I'll hand it over to staff.
Thank you. We have a current policy when we hit mailboxes, and the policy mainly is here about mailboxes, is we'll go out there and replace them with a standard small tin mailbox, the ones we can pick up at the local hardware store. With the onslaught of people ordering stuff online, people are starting to get larger and larger mailboxes. And we hear from a lot of different people that, you know, I had one of the bigger Rubbermaid mailboxes and now you're just replacing with the small ones, and they're not always the happiest. So what we'd like to do is give the people an option, because we also know we have some elderly people out there that don't have the ability to replace the mailbox on their own. So what we're going to propose is a new policy where we'll go out there, replace them just that we always have, or give them a choice of a gift card at like a Menards or a Fleet Farm for $100. So what I did is I went in and found out unfortunately we hit probably about 20 mailboxes a year, and what we need to do is we physically hit the mailbox, we replace them. If it's just snow coming off the plow, their mailboxes need to withstand that. Unfortunately, like I said, we do hit about 20 a year. A lot of times it's not the fault of the plow drivers. If somebody's coming down the road and they're not giving our plow driver adequate room with the wing out there, if their mailbox is a little bit too close, so unfortunately accidents happen. Worst case scenario, we send 2 guys generally out to repair a mailbox, and if they're close to Wausau and they're, you know, in the route of going to a different job, the cost varies. On the high end, let's just say we have to send 2 guys out to replace a mailbox up on Double H. The cost we're looking at is about $311 for those 2 guys to run out that distance to replace a mailbox. So we feel it would be a savings for us if we give the people an option. Again, if we physically hit the mailbox, if we go out there and offer these people a choice. What I did is I went to Menards and I looked just at a standard mailbox is about $28.50. A larger one is $61. If you want to get a deluxe one, well, then you're looking at $99. And a post is $11. So if the post was damaged, then you have to replace the post, which always isn't the case. So again, we'd like to offer these people a gift card. That way they can go get what they want. We'll give them their choice if they want it from what hardware store they want, and then we'll move on from there. If they do decide to put them up themselves, we'll still go out and inspect them to make sure that we physically hit them, and then we'll also send along with when we give them the gift card, we also will give them proper installations from the U.S. Postal Service of the location and the height, so that we know that they're put in the right spot. And with that, we also put a few things in there regarding plowing. The county is also not responsible for any damage caused to any fences or head walls or shrubs or plantings located within the right-of-way, damage to lawns or gravel in the driveways, and those are about the main 2 that we also included in the plowing damage. So it's mainly the mailbox where we like to go give them that gift card. I did work with Christy in finance. She is fine with that. And I also work with Michael in Corp Counsel, and he was fine with that also.
Does anybody on the committee have any questions? Is there, I see in the policy you're talking about, you want somebody to come and report this immediately. Do you guys have a time in mind? Is it a week, a month, or?
Generally, they're pretty fast. We've never had an issue with it's been,
sure.
6 months. So we've never really had an issue with it, but we do say in a timely manner. We don't want somebody to come back in July and say we hit it.
Okay, great. Well, this is an item that we have on the agenda for action, so if anybody would like to, we could take a motion. Please use your microphone so that we're picking up all the audio when you're talking.
I'll make a motion to the effect that Jim suggested, if you want to read through that, Jim, or to get the right, if we need to do that.
That it would actually be on the bottom of page 1, that we will give the resident a option to replace the damaged mailbox with a standard 6x9x19 mailbox, or compensate the landowner for posting mailboxes with a $100 gift card.
That's what I wanted to say.
I've known what you want to say for years, Tom.
We have a motion by Soibert. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We get a second from Jensen. Any further comments, questions? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none. Motion passes.
I have one question for Jim. Jim, if the mailboxes aren't legal for distance off the road, is there anything done about that?
We always had we've had the landowners remove them. Unfortunately, a lot of times we find this out in winter, so we have to kind of play around all winter with the mailbox, and then in summer we'll send them a notice to have it moved.
All right, let's move on to item 6 on our agenda, operational functions required by statute, ordinance, resolution, or policy, which we have none of, which means we can move on to item 7, educational presentations and committee discussion. We won't be taking any action on any of these items. These are simply for committee discussion. Starting with 7A, review of standing committee related ordinances under section 2.04, including mission, duties, and responsibilities and jurisdiction. I'm handing that over to Administrator Leonard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We do this each and every term relative to orientation for the committee, just to help you as you embark on a new term. The county board, through your organizational rules, which you just adopted at your last meeting, sets out how you're organized. That is the essence of administrative home rule that counties enjoy. So starting with your standing committee, all of the standing committees, in fact, in section 2.04 of your ordinances, which are available online, lay out in very similar form and fashion the mission, purpose, membership, term, and reporting relationships for each respective standing committee, many of which are similar. But with each and every new term, we just take a couple minutes to go through that individual ordinance section and have discussion about if there are any questions or concerns relative to what it is that the infrastructure committee in this instance is overseeing. So your specific standing committee is section 2.04 sub 6. It shouldn't be surprising. Your primary mission and purpose, and this is consistent with all of the standing committees, really revolves around the implementation of the strategic plan and the corresponding county board policies related to the things under your jurisdiction, which in this instance are technology and infrastructure initiatives, which include, but it's not limited to, highways, airways, and waterways. So we'll talk in a little bit with your next agenda item, the specific county committees, county departments, or other entities that'll come before you throughout the year. They really are related to those items. In terms of your membership, you're very consistent with the other standing committees. Really, the only one that is the outlier is the Environmental Resources Committee. You have all elected officials, all county board supervisors. Again, the only outlier is the Environmental Resources Committee. I won't go through the duties and responsibilities in detail. You can read those, but you'll see this is consistent with all of the standing committees. Fostering the implementation of the strategic plan is really the kind of the first thing listed, and it has historically shaped a lot of the conversations at each of the standing committees in terms of agendas and the topics that are taken up. With respect to the infrastructure committee and the county's strategic plan, I'll pull up the most recent strategic plan revision and extension just to highlight that again is available on the county's website. But the infrastructure committee, quite honestly, you have a lot of various aspects of the strategic plan that you're charged with having a role in moving forward. Again, just to outline how this document is laid out, it is broken down into essentially 3 areas: objectives that relate to health, objectives that relate to safety, and objectives that relate to prosperity. The infrastructure committee is a support committee for objective 5.2, which relates to providing sound land use decisions that conserve and preserve natural resources in decisions with economic development and growth. Also a support committee for objective 6.3, protecting and enhancing the quantity and quality of potable groundwater and potable surface water supplies. You are also I'll go to the safest section. You are a support committee for objective 8.7, that is to strive to provide affordable, reliable, high-speed internet access throughout the county. You'll actually get a bit of an update on some of the work the county is doing in that regard. And if you haven't heard it, Jim will undoubtedly reference the need to have a utility accommodation policy at some time during this meeting or probably the next meeting. And then moving on to the last battery of objectives here, those related to being the most prosperous. Infrastructure is a support committee for objective 10.8, which is encouraging development and redevelopment of key employment centers in areas that possess strong market potential, provide good transportation access for workers, and promote the efficient movement of goods. You are also then the lead committee for objective 10.12, maintain infrastructure to support economic growth. Now, I'll just pick that last objective to kind of demonstrate to everyone, go through how this each of the objectives are organized within the strategic plan. The objective, again, that I read before is across the middle of each page. So each of the objectives are in the bar in the middle. So here we're talking about 10.12, maintain infrastructure to support economic growth. Across the top are the various strategies that the county board has identified as strategies that it would believe that if we pursue those, we would have an impact on achieving that objective. Now, the objectives as well as the strategies are largely drawn from the county's comprehensive plan, which is likewise available on the county website. That comprehensive plan is, again, that 20-year plan that is getting a refresh over the next 12 to 18 months. But again, those objectives and strategies are drawn from that for the strategic plan being that shorter time frame, that 3 to 5 year look forward. There were some strategies that have been added to the strategies from the comprehensive plan, but again, all these things are ultimately adopted by the county board. So we have objectives in the middle, strategies across the top. At the bottom of the document on each page, we have outcome measures. And the reason for those outcome measures is really each of the objectives is relatively vague in terms of what you would actually see if you maintain infrastructure to support economic growth, for example. How would you know you're doing that? Well, the process of putting forward to the strategic plan, this is what was added, which is not a feature of the comprehensive plan. So we tried to identify, and the county board ultimately adopted these things, and very recently, last term, revised this strategic plan. But what would we be looking to see if we were moving in the right direction relative to our infrastructure? Outcome measure number 1 is maintain a county highway overall PACER rating, or pavement surface evaluation and rating score average annual rating of 7.0. Outcome measure number 2, we'd implement at least 3 Federal Highway Administration safety countermeasures, based on information from the 2021 Marathon County Roadway Safety Plan or its successor on an annual basis. And last, that staff report to the Infrastructure Committee relative to feedback from municipal leaders, elected or appointed, on safety concerns on county highway and multimodal transportation system following quarterly safety meetings, and we do have those quarterly safety meetings through the Highway Safety Committee. So that's how the document is organized. On the far right, you'll see a circle that says departments contributing. That was an attempt to identify all the departments that likely have a hand in achieving this objective. They are not listed in anything other than alphabetical order, so it's not as to say that CWA has the highest or the greatest role in contributing. They're just listed in terms of whether or not we believed that they had a meaningful role. So that's how the document is organized. Again, when you look at your ordinance as opposed to that lays out your duties, responsibilities, and areas of jurisdiction, the primary, one of the recurring themes, I should say, is certainly the strategic plan. That's why I just wanted to take a couple minutes to go through that. But happy, Mr. Chair, to take questions relative to anything within that ordinance or the jurisdiction. As I said, the next item on your agenda, I believe, is introduction of the various entities that will come before you frequently. They are listed. You see in the relationships section of the ordinance, you have the Highway Safety Commission that I've just referred to, that Jim and other staff are a part of. You'll hear frequently from Central Wisconsin Airport. You'll hear very frequently from the Highway Department, and you'll hear also from CCIT relative to technology infrastructure. So with that, Mr. Chair, happy to take any questions.
Does anybody on the committee have any questions for Administrator Leonard? Seeing none, let's move on to, do we need to cover item B, or you feel like you've already covered that?
If the individual departments want to go quickly, I think Jim is the only one here. Jerry's here, sorry. Jim and Jerry are here.
Let's go around the room, and it would probably be good for MPO as well to have a moment. Keep it brief, please.
All right, so I did pull up if you have questions about what individual departments do, the budget is always a great place to get that real high-level overview. So, Jim, you want to take it away relative to Highway, what you do and how you're organized?
Sure. And also just to tag on, I did supply, for people who like paper, like myself, I did supply a 3-ring binder of a presentation of the committee members' responsibilities as far as the statutory requirements for you today. I also put a tab in the backside that says policies. Seeing that I was hoping that we would approve the mailbox policy, we'll update that, and I'll bring that along next meeting so you can update your binder with that. So as far as the Highway Department, structurally, we have, there we go, thank you. We have 76 strong, and we have our main objective within the department is plowing snow. I mean, that's what I tell people we're here for. We plow snow. That's one of our main winter duties. But along with that, we also take care of all the utilities within the right-of-way. You'll see the utility structure. We do have utility accommodation policy that we probably need to update. So we oversee all the utilities going into the right-of-way, which is a job in its half right now with Jerry's broadband expansion. As everybody drives on the highway, you see utilities out there all the time. So that's one thing we're working on right now. We also have our own paving crew. We'll pave about 30 miles a year, roughly between 80 and 90,000 tons of asphalt. Thanks. We have our bridge crew. We're one of the few counties in the state that have our own bridge crew, which means we'll build some of our own bridges. We'll be building a bridge this year on Highway N, just west of Highway H. We have our mechanic crew. We have 9 mechanics that take care of our large fleet, which consists of over 500 pieces of equipment. We have we do a lot of maintenance. You know, we have a state crew, which we contract with the state of Wisconsin. Many of you know this, but we are the only state in the union that the county does the work on the state system. through a process what's called a routine maintenance agreement. So we have the contract through the state. We have a construction crew that replaces a lot of culverts and ditching. We don't do major construction anymore. We have most of the major construction done. But we still replace any culvert pipes anywhere from a 24-inch culvert pipe to twin box culverts that are 16 feet twins. So we do everything in between. We do a lot of municipal work for some townships that rather hire us through the Culvert and Bridge Aid program. And like I said, general maintenance. We're out there filling potholes, mowing ditches, making sure everything is safe within the right of way.
Moving on to MPO. Oh, we'll just make it work around the proverbial.
All right, so again, I'm Dave Mack. I'm, as a part of the CPZ department, I'm also the director of the Marathon County Metropolitan Planning Organization, or the WASA MPO. That group the commission is made up of the chief elected officials of all of the communities in the Wausau metro area. They then oversee some of the funding that comes into the metro area for road transportation projects. I've always said that the MPO is pretty much a liaison between the local communities and the state and federal highway administration, federal transit administration. We do work with the city of Wausau's metro ride as well. So we do primarily the transportation planning work for the state and feds in the local area, and so that's where most of our work is done.
Thank you.
What? Savvy? I said transit. Oh, and I just wanted to make a comment that we're sorry to see John leave as the chair of the MPO, but we're very happy that Randy is now going to be chairing the MPO for us. So we've got a great tie back to this committee as well. You want me to say something more about transit?
They're working. There are a number of work groups within the MPO. In one that is just starting to meet is dealing with transit in the metro area, involving the various units of government to try to see if there are opportunities to expand transit regionally and how to pay for that.
Ready?
Go ahead.
Okay. Again, from earlier, I'm Jerry Klein. I'm the director of the City County IT Commission. The City County IT Commission is unique. There's no other one like it in the state of Wisconsin. It's a shared service IT organization. It's a standalone legal entity, and we're owned by the city, the county, and North Central Healthcare. And I report to a board of directors. Representing the county on the board is whoever is the highest elected and the highest appointed position. So currently that's, of course, Lance and Kurt. They represent the county on my board. I basically have to break even every year from a financial perspective. So we have a method of chargeback that we can get into at a later date because that's an involved discussion. But I can give you a quick overview of what we do and our priorities are. We have about 31 staff. We're organized like most IT organizations. We have a help desk, a set of PC techs that we call endpoint people. We have server networking, and then some application analysts and a team of security people, cybersecurity people. We support. We have stuff spread out in 3 counties because North Central has activities in Langlade and in Lincoln County. We support our big systems are law enforcement. We have a system called from Central Square called Superion. We bought it in 2017, 2018, we implemented it. That supports the dispatch center, the 130 plus squad cars that are on the road across the 11 law enforcement agencies, the records management system, the software that's in those squad cars, it's called mobile, and then the jail system. And then we interact regularly with state systems like the district attorney's system on the law enforcement side of it. We do a lot of cameras. We have 3 different camera systems. One is all of our fixed camera systems like the ones in this building. The jail, of course, has a lot of cameras, I think 120 just in the jail. All at the city, all of the parking ramps have about 2 to 3 dozen cameras in them. We have cameras out on the 400 block, on the kayak course, and then in squad cars we have front and back cameras. Most of the officers that we support have body worn cameras, and then we have specialty cameras like license plate recognition cameras. So we do a lot of camera stuff. The other large system that we deal with is Workday, our financial and human resource system. We implemented that a year ago. We're still continuing to work on that. I'll give a little mention of that later. And then the other area that I've been focusing in, especially with respect to the infrastructure committee in the county, is broadband, and we have that up on the agenda as well. It's for later. Is that a good cover, Randy?
I think so. Anybody got any questions for any of the departments? If not, we'll have some more follow-ups later in the agenda to get a little more specific. Moving on to item 7C, brief overview of last term discussion and action. We're going to throw the ball up in the air. We'll see who catches it.
Sure, I'll start. I think this is something that has been the last several terms, and it's certainly going to be something we talk about this term. And it's central to the strategic plan, but the potential relocation of the highway department has been the highway department main shop here in Wausau, I should say, has been a topic of discussion ever since I've got into administration, and that's been 7 years now, but it certainly predates me. I think we've had a lot of good conversation at this committee, and Jim and I are working on getting some information in the next bringing information back to this committee to get some direction, primarily a financial analysis, looking at our current highway reserves, but we'll have that discussion. Another big piece, Jim alluded to this earlier with, I should say, referenced on your agenda with safety and rumble strips. The county has done a lot. This committee has had a lot of discussions over the last couple of years about, safety policies. Trying to make sure we have policies that guide our actions, to provide insight to ensure that are consistent with our strategic plan, that we're addressing those concerns. And then this actually goes back 2 terms, but the discussion certainly went into last term, and that is the need to be fiscally sustainable. We did a 2050 sustainability study relative to our highway system, as I think was referenced in our orientation. Marathon County, we all know it's the largest county by landmass in the state of Wisconsin. We have a great deal of county highways. We have well over 1,000 lane miles of roadway, more than double the average lane miles of counties in the state of Wisconsin. That is a very, very valuable and expensive asset. When Jim's talking about the cost to the asphalt that they're talking about, 80,000 or 90,000 tons. The cost to pave a mile of roadway is somewhere in the 230,000, both ways as opposed to lane mile, but a mile of roadway, $230,000+. So ensuring that we are keeping that PACER rating consistent with the strategic plan of 7, an average, is a very financially challenging position to be in. So that was a significant discussion. I think we made a lot of headway over the last several years. Jim has a good adage relative to some of the grant programs that we've been able to tap into, and in terms of match, that if the state is going to give us like an 80-20 match or 90-10, if you're going to give me 90 cents for every dime, I'm going to show up with a pocket full of dimes. We've been very successful. Jim and his team have been very successful in leveraging a lot of those high match programs where the county invests some funds, but of course, most of those funds come from other sources. So I think those are going to continue to be areas of discussion. How do we ensure that financial stability, that financial sustainability? How do we continue our record of safety, and then truly relocating a highway department a main shop that should have been relocated some time ago. So I don't know if any past members, I'll kick it back to you, Mr. Chair, or any other staff to talk about past items of discussion, other than, of course, broadband has been a huge point of discussion the last several years, and I think you get monthly updates from Jerry and from Supervisor Robinson relative to the task force.
Anybody with any further updates for item 7C? Seeing nobody jumping on their microphone, let's move on to item 7D, discussion regarding potential areas of committee focus during this term.
Ditto to what I just said. I think I alluded to the first thing that I envision working with you, Mr. Chair, Jim and I, to bring forward kind of a plan of evaluation relative to the potential relocation of the highway shop, but then continued discussion relative to the items I referenced.
Yeah, I think from a big picture standpoint, that discussion about facilities planning and where we're going with that is going to be a big item in our next couple months and years together. So look forward to that. Anything further on 7D from anybody? Hearing none, let's move on to 7E, rumble strips as outlined in the Marathon County Roadway Safety Plan. Turn it over to staff.
Thank you. Kevin and I are going to tag team on this one. So back in 2021, we developed a highway safety plan, and it had numerous items in it, what to look at: enhancing edge lines, putting a lot of chevrons on some curves, clearing out right-of-ways, obstructions. So we have a whole list, and as the strategic plan talks about, we'd like to do at least 3 a year. So back in May of 2021, the committee did approve the safety plans with one caveat that we engage with the MPO Bike and Ped Committee to talk about the edgeline rumble strip. So I believe about May, at the same time Andy left the MPO, and I don't believe there's been a Bike Ped Committee.
We changed the structure of
Yeah, so there hasn't been much, and here we are, 2024, with 3 projects identified in our highway safety plan that were identified that we should be putting some rumble strips. As Ms. Troy said, we did sit down with 3 members of the Wausau Wheelers on Tuesday, must have been Tuesday, to discuss this. One of the projects is Highway KK, and as was indicated that the shoulders are wide enough on there to put in the rumble strips. And what we are also going to do with this is we are going to put in gaps. I believe it's 48 feet of rumble strips and a 12-foot opening. So giving areas so that they can move over if they see obstruction coming ahead. If there's a side road coming into it, there won't be any rumble strips placed in those areas on either side road, even if it's like a T road, that they can go, the opposite, head 90 degrees off of that. So those roads have been discussed. We also have 2 other roads identified, Highway X and Highway J, that we're looking at doing some rumble strips. Highway J happens to be, and we discussed this after our meeting on Tuesday, this is one of those jobs that we did get some federal and state funding for. So we may need to talk to the state about their thoughts about removing these. The other thing is unique on Highway J is they're not rumble strips, they're called mumble strips, or they have a fancy...
They're sinusoidal rumble strips. Mumble is easier.
Mumble strips. So instead of, it kind of goes up and down, kind of like this here, that's what is going to be placed on Highway J. We did talk to the Wheelers regarding, some alternatives, because, again, we're looking for the safety of everyone. The one alternative we threw out there was, well, what happens if we paint the edge line at 11.5 feet, and then the rumble strip is right outside of that? We said, well, what happens if we would paint the road at 12 feet, move the rumble strip over another 8 inches, I believe we can move it behind that, regarding to match the guidelines, giving them extra room, but it would be in the lane of traffic. And I don't know, there was some discussion at 6 o'clock on a Tuesday night. If there is a paved shoulder out there, are they going to be on the right side of the fog line, or are they going to be on the left side of the fog line anyhow? So that discussion also happened. We also discussed about on Highway X, putting the mumble strips on Highway X also, and just not on Highway J. Kevin is working to get together some information where some of those are placed and hand them off to Todd Troy from the Wausau Wheeler so they can go out and see if there's a lot of difference between those and the rumble strips, and it might not be quite as bad. But so today Kevin's gonna kind of go through some facts and figures for you regarding these. So we placed it on the agenda today as an education item. Planning on probably coming back in the June meeting to make a policy decision on that. And it's one of these things we really can't kick down the road because summer is here and we need to start doing it. Highway X construction is going to start soon. We could put in just a center line and have them come back at a later date to do the edge lines, but then you're paying for mobilization, and I just as soon do it all at once. So we will need a decision on that. So Kevin will talk about the key items on there, and some stuff's found in the safety plan regarding runoffs.
Okay, just a quick background. Some of you were on the committee back when we had that plan came through, and some of you were not. But essentially, what the consultant did is they looked at both our roads, our traffic volumes, our crashes, but then there's also they've kind of worked with some national practices of looking at roads and identifying where these crashes occur, not based off of, hey, you had 3 crashes occur on this segment of road, but they look at on the national system for rural 2-lane roads, these run-off-the-road crashes occur on roads with these lane widths, with these traffic volumes, with these site characteristics, and these shoulder widths. So they looked at our system in 2 different ways, and after they looked at that system, they provided recommendations on what Federal Highways has as low-cost countermeasures, which is the shoulder rumble strips are one of those. The most common thing that we've been implementing so far has been like our chevrons on curves and just enhancing shoulder paving and signage on our curves, because that's another hot spot we have for crashes. Their data showed that we had about 1,852 crashes on our network in the study period that they looked at. And of those, about 35% of those crashes are run-off-the-road crashes. And the second component they looked at then is the severe crashes, which is going to be your injuries and your fatalities. Are they severe? And similarly to the run-off-the-road statistic, 35% of our severe crashes were related to vehicles running off of the roadway. So that's why they recommended the shoulder rumble strips, because that is a proven countermeasure to catch motorists, whether they might be distracted, impaired, just dozing off, drowsy. Those are the driver features. You guys probably have seen that when you're out on the road. And those rumble strips are effective at capturing those motorists and keeping them alert and keeping them on the roadway. The downside is they do, Mr. Troy pointed out, they do negatively impact the bicycle community, particularly the group riders where they're riding together in a group. Some of the documentation for guidance, Mr. Troy pointed out too, that 4 foot is the minimum that they recommend outside of that shoulder rumble strip for areas that are well traveled by bicyclists. Our issue we run into on Highway X and Highway J, the road bed is not wide enough to incorporate the travel lane, the shoulder rumble, and 4 feet. Our typical sections show that we'll be at about 3 feet that we would have outside of that shoulder rumble strip. So our balance is balancing out the safety based off of our safety plan we had, and then trying to meet the needs of all of the users of the road. So that's where our crux is. There's no perfect answer. KK is a wider road. We have 17 feet of asphalt out there. So we're able to fit in and kind of check all of those boxes on there. But that's where we're at, where we look to implement those based off of the safety plan and based off of their effectiveness for capturing the 35% of the severe and the run-off-the-road crashes that we're seeing.
Thank you. And Mr. Troy provided me with some documentation. We'll make sure that gets distributed to all the committee members before our next meeting. You'll have them send me an email and we'll have staff send that out. One of the questions I had, just like looking at County Highway X with that, I think right now there's not even a shoulder at all, really. It's just gravel, right?
Yeah, it's right now, Highway X is, depending on where you measure it, 11 to 12 feet of pavement. That last 6 inches usually isn't something that's usable for biking. That is one thing that we're improving these, but then we're also putting the rumble strips that's in the middle of that, not in the middle, but within that paved shoulder. So we are widening that out. J is similar, depending on kind of where you measure, 11 to 12 feet of pavement and 4 to 6 foot of gravel shoulders, and then we're paving over where the gravel shoulders are.
All right. Anybody on the committee have any questions for staff? Go ahead, Mr. Gisselman.
You noticed you made mention of the crashes. Are there any sense of bicycle crashes within the county and where they are and how they've come about? Any sense of that?
I didn't see any. I just did a quick scan on Highway J. The downside with it is the frequency. The incidents are going to be so low that it's not like where we have 1,800 data points on it. And I believe, Dave, you might have knowledge of this. I believe most of our pedestrian bicyclists are generally occurring in the urban areas.
Just checking, because in planning, you would think if there's certain bicycle accidents in certain county roads, what can we be thinking about relieving those issues? Mr. Troy, I think the bicyclers, I think J is one of the major north-south county roads that gets bicyclers north and south. It's just, I think we have to be thinking about this, but thank you.
Yeah, and one thing we didn't hit on was Highway J. In the planning for that, we did look at and get some of the information from the Wheelers. Their main route that they had mapped out for several of their groups that use goes between Martin Road and Litza Road. So we did have, in that segment, we did have the designers completely omit the rumble stripes through there, knowing that is the most heavily traveled and most frequently used section of Highway J.
All right, anybody else on the committee have any questions or staff?
Just one last comment, as you mentioned, with the widening of the road. Like I said, there's probably about 11 and a half feet out there. If we would do what we kind of discussed by moving that fog line over and then also putting the rumble strip outside of that 6-8 inches, it will increase from what they currently have, the bike community, probably a foot and a half.
That was like 12 and a half.
Yeah, so they're probably about somewhere in that 18 inches that they're going to have more room today, or after the road is paved, than today. So just wanted to mention that also.
Couple questions. So for the drive off the road crashes, did the report outline anything like weather related? Like was it fair weather or climate related, snow, ice, that kind of thing?
The report didn't take weather. I mean, the weather and deer crashes are tossed out.
Okay. And then my other question would be, with the rumble strips being added to the roads, does that reduce the life cycle of the road at all? Just due to all the pockets and ice, water, et cetera?
That has been something looked at. I know the state's kind of looked at it, and it does deteriorate, but the offset of the safety has been kind of the DOT guidance that it outweighs the deterioration.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Supervisor Dickinson, I was just going to mention one thing. I looked at community maps, and that data from 2023 showed 25 bicycle accidents in Marathon County. Only 2 were on county roads. Everything else was urban. Just wanted to point that out.
Thank you, Supervisor Dickinson. Any other questions, comments? Go ahead.
I wasn't aware this was on the agenda, so I'll plan something for the June meeting for my comment on it. But I've spoken about against this multiple times because I ride KK all the time. Jim, the concern I have is you never the roads the shoulders don't get swept. So there's garbage cans. People put their garbage cans out in that lane, and when you're in a group of people, and the only way to avoid that is to go across rumble strips, and I find them incredibly dangerous and biking on. I'll have something ready for the June meeting though.
All right, thank you. Any other questions, comments from the committee? Hearing, seeing none, we'll move on to item F, and we'll look forward to that discussion at our June meeting. Item F, broadband update. I'll turn it over to our broadband duo in the corner.
It's a triumvirate. So the trio, not the duo.
Okay, trio, sorry.
So I'm John Robinson, and I've had the opportunity of chairing the broadband task force for, it seems like forever. County started efforts in 2008, hiring Ehlers and Associates to do a broadband gap analysis. And that study found that there were significant differences between rural and urban access to broadband, and both in terms of speeds and satisfaction and availability. Because of the limitations of the state statutes, the recommendations were that we wanted to rely on the private sector to expand service in that area. In 2015, the county appointed a connectivity task force that studied it again and found that things hadn't changed much, but again deferred to the state statutes and limitations and looked to the private sector to initiate expansion. In 2019, we hired Design 9, thank you. Design 9 to revisit the 2008-9 study, and they found that things didn't change. And they made a recommendation relative to developing middle mile fiber and installing a number of 35-36 towers throughout the county to provide fixed wireless. We took that plan and met with the internet service providers and said, if we built the system, will you rent the towers and or the fiber from us? And unanimously, the internet service providers said no, they wanted to do their own thing. Then the pandemic hit. And then there was an infusion of dollars in the state and the federal level that led to a keen interest in developing internet in rural Marathon County. And we have benefited from that. To date, we have submitted a significant number of grant applications partnering with the internet service providers. Again, under state statutes, the county can't provide the last mile. We can provide the middle mile, the connections, but the connection from the line is sort of like the interstate system. We can provide the interstate, but we can't provide the off-ramps. And we really need to have the off-ramps, and that's where the internet service providers come in. I'd like to just give you an update on some of the projects that we have. Some of them we are partners in, some are other governmental entities. The Rural Digital Opportunity Fund was a reverse auction through the Federal Communication Commission. In essence, they identified census tracts throughout the county, and they encouraged providers to bid. And the person that wanted the least amount of subsidy from the federal government won. Marathon County had significant interest from Spectrum or Charter Communications and a firm called LTD Broadband out of Minnesota. There were preliminary approvals given. Spectrum was approved, and they have been serving a good portion of western Marathon County. They are currently working up in Texas, and they'll be doing finishing off western part of the county this year, and then next year finishing off the rest of their area. But they're providing gigabyte service to the home or that opportunity. LTD Broadband was disqualified by the FCC, and unfortunately, it took them a long time to disqualify the firm, and we missed several grant rounds or opportunities to submit grants to cover that area because typically the state won't fund a project in an area that's served by a different program. So we've been focusing on that. We've also been working with a firm called Bug Tussle. Bug Tussle approached the county to join with some other counties on a conduit bonding issue under which they proposed to provide that middle mile fiber to towers and eventually fiber to the premise along the routes. We agreed to provide conduit or guarantee borrowing at approximately 25 million. The total issue for 5 counties was 78 million. It was led by Fond du Lac County. They basically will have a ring. They took sort of the Design 9 concept that we had developed and agreed to put in 18 towers, about half of what was there. But the beauty of those towers is they not only have fixed wireless for internet, ATT is a partner with them, so they enhance cell service and improve the quality there. But we received 40 basis points on the outstanding balance. To the county, we received 24 dark fibers in there, and we have access to their towers and we've used that for law enforcement to replace the Dancy Tower. So we have some benefits from that. Is by way of an update, they have experienced considerable increases in cost. And quite honestly, they had a contractor that didn't perform well. They have now changed contractors to Michaels Pipeline or Michaels Corp, and they're laying the fiber for them. Last year, they were laying a lot of conduit, but not a lot of fiber, not connecting it. This year, they are correcting that and advancing it, and we're working closely with them. But they've indicated that they may be requesting additional conduit borrowing because of the cost. There's a lot more rock than they thought. Imagine that in Marathon County. And they had originally planned on being able to string the fiber from phones, as did Spectrum with their RDOF area. And they found out that they have to bury them because of the distance between the poles. In 2022, we partnered with 3 different companies in submitting grant applications. Serenity out of Wittenberg, which was unsuccessful. Bug Tussle, which had a project in the Knowlton, Cronewater, Gunther area, serving 605 homes and I think some additional businesses. We agreed to partner with them and match them at $235 per crossing. And we provide that in the form of a forgivable loan. In the case of Bug Tussle, it's $142,175. They had also requested that we give them a grant of $1.5 million. We said we couldn't do that, given the scope of it and other demands. They then asked for a loan for up to $3 million loan, less the 142. We committed to do that originally, thinking that it would be we could use ARPA funds for that. We, in the process, found out that ARPA couldn't be used in a loan that went beyond 2026. So we committed to look and work with them relative to a long-term funding program. We are working and having discussions with Bug Tussle on both the conduit borrowing and how we will package that loan per the March 2022 submittal and commitment that the county board made. Frontier, it'll come up in the next month because they've actually begun work on the leather. They call it the Leather Camp project, but they are extending fiber to the homes in those areas as we speak. But they're looking for it.
Supervisor Robinson, that's the one going down 153 currently? Yes. Okay. Yep.
And then the final one that I'll mention, then I'll turn it over to Aaron, is Frontier. Frontier Communication had approached us to be part of a grant or support their PSC grant in 2022, and their numbers kept changing, and we agreed to fund them at the $235 based upon 4,024 crossings, or about $944,835. They increased the number of passings to 10,000. PSC gave them, Public Service Commission gave them approval. And subsequently, upon review, that they found that there were a significant number of duplicate addresses, and PSC has suspended that grant while they work through trying to clarify it. We've had a number of meetings with Frontier relative to the scope of that project, avoiding duplication. We have some concerns about the service area. They're rebuilding their copper lines in the urban area and the rural areas. We never intended to pay for the reconstruction or replacement of copper lines in the metro area. So we're working closely with them to try to figure out what level of participation we will have. It will not exceed that $944,000, and it could be significantly less. Most of the county's funding has come through the ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act funding. We did put $250,000 in the capital project fund at one time. We have, I think, some of that left over that's going to pay for Aaron Andrews, and our team. We have a broadband task force comprised of 11 members, and Jerry Klein, in his role as the IT coordinator, has taken the leadership role for the county. And then recently, we've hired Aaron Andrews to help us with exciting upcoming opportunities relative to the broadband expansion and access deployment program.
Did you get all that? Hi, I'm Erin Andrews. I'm the broadband coordinator. I've been hired to help facilitate and coordinate the efforts behind BEAD, which is the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program. That's federal funds that was distributed across all 50 states plus territories. And they allocated $1.05 billion to go to Marathon County to support efforts to bring broadband access to or underserved communities, particularly in rural areas, especially in Marathon County. Marathon County, the PSC is facilitating this BEAD project. It's a quite an extensive project, and they've been working on it, but it really got going in May. So what we're doing now is reviewing the maps that the PSC and the FCC have created to establish who has service and who does not. My job is to verify that those maps are accurate, which it's a massive effort, and we're finding discrepancies, so I am reviewing those. And then to make sure that a house that doesn't have service is eligible for BEAD funding. What we're doing then is challenging those maps. That's what's happening in the month of May. Then the internet service providers have a chance to respond to those challenges and say, yes, we do provide service, or no, we don't. And then the flyer I shared in the packet is something I created for the Eastern and Western Towns Association meetings, but it's also able to be shared. It gives you a timeline, and then we kick off letters of intent and then grant applications. So it's quite a process. But in addition to coordinating those maps, my job is to engage with local communities to encourage community engagement, because in this grant process, the BEAD process, as opposed to others, community engagement is a key piece to the process and can really boost a score of a grant application. Again, we are not applying for the funding, the internet service providers are, but we partner with them to make sure that we get the coverage that we're looking for. If you scroll to the next page of that PDF, there's a map of Marathon County that we have highlighted in orange. There we go. That's a map of Marathon County. The orange areas are highlighted areas that we have emphasized are high priority for BEAD funding because they have a high number of or underserved addresses. So we're working on those areas. There's a few areas that are still going to be added to that map. That map is always growing. Then once we start working with those internet service providers, we'll be going back to the communities and asking for engagement. And then we will also be bringing it back to your committee and ultimately to the county to seek support for projects that we are interested in supporting for these grant applications. Multiple internet service providers may apply for certain areas, but the county we will be supporting certain projects. So we will prioritize projects that we think are most effective and most cost effective.
I think the one thing that we've learned is that historically, we've worked with the ISPs and we will work with any and all internet service providers, but we've let them drive where we fund. I think what this map is an effort to get us to prioritize those hardest to serve areas and try to work with the internet service providers to serve them. So we'll be basically asking them to, we will participate in these hard to serve areas. We're not going, and try to direct their efforts into those areas so we've got coverage. And there's a lot of money, but it's not enough money statewide. So it's important that we be as organized and proactive as possible in trying to develop those partnerships.
Does anybody on the committee have any questions?
I just want to add one thing. If you take a good look at this map, all of the white on the map, just focus on that for a minute. Everything in white has some form of plan already. So Charter's already done a big section over by Stratford, you can see that kind of T shape over there. All the rest of the white, it has some other form of grants already in play. So they're probably by the end of 27, I think is probably a fair statement, right? 2027. All of the stuff in white will have some kind of fiber to the home by somebody. Just there's like 3 or 4 different providers doing different things. So everything in orange is what we're working on, trying to figure out exactly how many properties are in there. It's probably around 9,000, give or take a little bit. That's what we're going to be trying to encourage people to apply for grants.
Any questions from the committee? I understand with the broadband funding that's available right now, and I was just at a conference earlier this week talking about broadband in Northwoods through extensions. With the way that technology is expanding and growing, when we get in these areas that just really lack density, what's the plan for looking at putting fiber in the ground versus waiting for the eventual technology that's going to exist through the air?
Currently, the limitations are based upon what the FCC and the NTIA, National Telephonics Information and Administration, set for eligible projects. And they have basically said, for instance, Starlink is not an eligible activity. It's not considered serving it. They're in the process of reviewing that, and when and where should they allow other technologies to come in place. And you've got, relative to satellite services, significant differences. You've got companies like Hughes that are high orbiting versus Starlink, which is low orbiting, which reduces the latency, the difference between upload and download speeds. Aspirus, which is a member of the Broadband Task Force, uses Starlink at some of their satellite offices, so it's come a long way. I think it makes sense for us to look at that. If there's a home that needs a 3-mile run for fiber, that's a couple $100,000 for that home, and it may not make sense. But again, we're dealing with dollars and programs that are determined by other people. But I subscribe to a number of services. There is some discussion relative to opening up other technologies.
Yeah, and I understand at this point we're playing the game on their field. It's not that we get to design a lot of this stuff, but I think there may be a point in the future when we have the opportunity to take a look at what our costs are to run some fiber versus finding an alternative solution that's a whole lot cheaper. So you have one more comment? All right, anybody from the committee have any questions, comments? Go ahead.
I guess my only question would be any governances around the cost to the homeowner around the service that's being provided based on the program.
Part of there are requirements relative to affordability. They're currently, well, I don't know if we currently, as of potentially this week, there was the American Connectivity Program, which provided a subsidy to people under 200% of the poverty rate for broadband service. That program is unfunded. It's running out of funding. There are requirements relative to different, pricing is part of many of the grant programs. There are differences. We talked Starlink. Starlink has a higher investment, capital investment for the owner to buy the receiver, and a higher monthly charge. So I think what you want to do is try to introduce competition as well as you can, but not subsidize competition, because you want access, but you want to encourage it. So there are some programs. There are efforts ongoing on the federal level to expand the Affordable Connectivity Program. But it is an ongoing issue. But there are different pricing schedules, and you can buy 25, 3. The standard right now is 100 megabytes down, 20 up. It's that's the served level. If you're below that, you're underserved, and if you are below 25, 3, you are unserved. So those are what's driving the interest.
And I can just add, just to give you some kind of historical example, if you're out on the west side of the Stettin, you guys know where the Walden Walden Lane area is. There's a couple of subdivisions that got built just past that, and they didn't, Charter didn't go to them. A couple of the people that built brand new houses there, wanted better internet, went to Charter and said, hey, can you come down our street and connect up to this little subdivision, 8 new houses? And Charter wanted $20,000 from each of them. So with these grants, they're not allowed to do that kind of discussion. They basically are have to connect up. There's no cost to the homeowner, and then they cap the prices. Most of these we're seeing is about $70 to $80 a month for fiber to the home.
Any further questions, comments from the committee? Hearing none. Anything further on item 7G, BEAD broadband grant update that kind of got rolled in with our last item?
I just want to remind you, as John said, we'll need to have some time on the June meeting for sure, because we're hoping to do is have the loan discussion in front of the county board at their June meeting.
Okay, we can accommodate that. Anything further from the committee members? Let's move on to item 7H, CCIT Workday project update.
I have some good news. We struggled quite a bit with getting the budget that we had done last November, loaded into Workday. It's a long story, not a great one, but struggled with the consultants that we're using to do it. They were very siloed. They had someone that knew how to use the budgeting software and someone that knew how to do Workday, and we went around and around with them for a couple of months. We finally, as of last week, have it properly loaded, so we don't have to do it by hand in Excel, where we were, what we've been doing over just in the last few months is just taking data out of the budget system, taking data out of Workday and hand putting them together in Excel. We now have all the departments who will be able to run their budget versus actual reports. My team, 2 of my staff are going to be offering training to all of the departments, their managers, and they're typically, a lot of the departments have their own finance people. Mary Hartweg from the Highway Department, for example. We're going to be kind of digging in to show them at a deeper level how to use the financial dashboard and how to use the budget versus actual reports over the next couple of weeks.
Can you just real brief explain what Workday is for people that may not know?
Sure. In my business, they call it an ERP system. It's enterprise resource planning. Typically, ERP systems do 2 things. They do all of your financial work, and they can and frequently do all your human resource, what that industry calls human capital management. So on the financial side, Workday has our budget in it, and then we do all of our accounts payable and accounts receivable and purchase orders in Workday. And then on the human capital management side of it, we post jobs. All of our jobs or positions are in there. All of our wages are in there. We post jobs in there. We do performance reviews in there, so it manages benefits for employees. And then the piece that bridges between them is payroll. So payroll takes information from the human capital management side of it to say, this person is in this position and this is their current pay and these are the rules that they get for overtime or not overtime. And then all of the employees at the end of each two-week pay period it's either automatically submitted or they're submitting their time, and it's creating a payroll file, and then the payroll file kind of goes over to the finance side of Workday and does ACH payments into people's bank accounts.
Wonderful.
Workday is a great tool. It's a very modern, sophisticated tool. It's probably because it's so advanced, it's also complicated. So it's been taking us a long time to really fine tune it. We still have a whole bunch of other stuff that we plan to do between now and the end of the year.
It's more nice things than I can say about Workday, so good job. Anybody on the committee have any comments on that portion? If not, let's roll into the item 7I, the CCIT IT project updates.
Well, you just got one of them. We finally made some progress with the budget versus actual reports in Workday. The other big things that we're working on right now is we just recently put in new firewalls. We went to Palo Alto firewalls. That gives us a whole new platform for cybersecurity improvements. We will be making continual changes with that this summer. The other big area we're affecting the county this summer is our new Microsoft licensing platform allows us to striate basically people into the highest level of software license to a significantly lower level. There's a huge price difference. So as I look around this room, I could tell you Jim and Lance need all of the capabilities of Office, Excel, and Outlook, so they have the highest level license. But Jim's highway crew basically might need an email address and might need to log in once in a while to look at Workday, to submit a vacation request or whatever, and they would have the lowest level of Microsoft license because it's just web access. Huge price difference between those two, so we'll be doing that over the next few months to continue to move that. The other big area that'll affect the county is we'll be moving everybody to .gov email addresses in 2024. Right now, the only people with .gov email addresses is the clerk's office because they were required to do it this fall before the presidential election season. So we'll be moving people to that as their primary email address, and we'll keep their old one up as an alias. Dave, you're going to miss that. Sorry. And then the other, there's a lot of stuff happens that we spend a lot of time related to physical moves, constructions of projects. Right now, we're working with North Central Healthcare. They sold Pinecrest Nursing Home, and Lincoln County sold Pinecrest Nursing Home. North Central had been contracted to support the nursing home for the last 2 years. So we're waiting for them to tell us what IT vendor they're going to be using. That has a hard stop if they stay with the schedule they have of June 30th. So we have to disconnect. It's fairly complicated. We have to disconnect them from our mail system, our wireless access system, our camera system, and the Lincoln County has to disconnect them from their phone system and their door control system. So that takes a lot of time from us. Over the last year, we did similar type work at the county when we moved social services into the Lakeview campus. And then when we stood up the new conference center, the Lakeview Conference Center, if you haven't seen that, it's awesome. It's been a very successful project. And then what we're working on right now, the next big construction project, well, there's two of them. One of them is the library project. We ended up having fiber in the way of the new air handlers for the library. So we just contracted with Alexco 2 days ago. To move the fiber, and then we're going to move, later this year, we're going to move everything in 210 River Drive to the library so that we can abandon and the county can do what they want with the properties along the river, 210, 212 River Drive. Right now, that unfortunately is a major connection point for my downtown fiber ring. That was put in place 15 years ago, long before we talked about getting out of the 210 property. So we have to move everything out of there by probably, I guess, Lance, we're talking about maybe May of 25, I think, right? And then the other project we have going on right now related to construction is the Lakeview AB section, the middle part of the Lakeview campus is currently empty. We moved all of the outpatient operations of North Central into the old nursing home. That area was gutted. It had asbestos in it, so they did the asbestos remediation. That's out of the way. We pulled out all of the old cabling, and now we're starting to plan the new cabling into the Lakeview AB campus, where conservation planning and zoning and other departments will move in 2025.
Anybody on the committee have any questions on the IT update?
Is also in your packet, I believe.
Yep.
Right near the end. A list of all of our current projects.
Yep, very end of the packet, so.
Yep, very end. It's pretty typical. We have about 40 to 45 projects we've been asked to work on. And from a priority level, we're usually working on about 20.
Yep.
Actively working on. Okay. And that's been pretty normal the whole time I've been here.
All right, let's move on to item 7J, WCHA Summer Road School.
Road School is fast approaching. I do have a copy of the agenda, which is June 3rd, 4th, and 5th in Wisconsin Dells. If anybody's interested, take a look at the agenda. However, the early bird deadline is May 17th for sign up. And if you may, as long as I got the mic in my hand, we're talking announcements coming up. I also like to personally thank Dave Mack for all the help he has given both me and the highway department and his friendship. So thank you very much for all the years of help, Dave. You'll truly be missed.
Thanks. Anybody have any questions for the highway commissioner? We'll miss you, Dave.
I just wanted to say to Lance that when he said that they were going to announce the two, I said I'm going to retire.
So if we just keep it open longer?
In the world, I think I'm going to leave.
Yeah.
Like 2 years ago,
I won't comment on whether or not we moved the project up or delayed it.
There you go.
But no, Dave has done a great job for a long time for Marathon County, so thank you to Jim for bringing that up. A lot of the transportation projects, quite honestly, the vast majority of the large transportation planning projects in Marathon County have been impacted in large part by Dave, so, and our surrounding communities. So he's been a great asset to everybody.
Thank you. On to item number 8, next meeting date and time, announcements, future meeting agenda items. Just from discussion today, a couple things that came up. We'll be talking about rumble strips. Sounds like utility accommodation policy in June or July, sometime in there in a future meeting. And then conversation with our future facilities planning and how that's going will be some topics we have coming up in the future. Looks like our next meeting date is Thursday, June 6, 2024. Does anybody on the committee have any ideas for future discussion? Go ahead.
Thank you. Have been getting a lot of telephone calls on Bitcoin farming, and is infrastructure going to be part of that, or just what most people don't even know what Bitcoin farming is. So if we could have a discussion on Bitcoin farming, and is all these computer lines and all this stuff going to be expected to run to these Bitcoin farms?
Is that, would the infrastructure committee be the appropriate place for that conversation?
You're putting me on the spot. I'll have to think about that. I will say I know that's been one of the things that sparked a fair amount of that discussion is the renewable natural gas processing out at the landfill. And we do plan on doing an informational update on that at an upcoming board meeting in connection with some zoning activity. But I'll reflect on that, Supervisor Soibert, and work with Chair Gibbs to get kind of that discussion where it needs to happen.
Yeah, interesting topic. We'll touch base and we can figure out the appropriate conversation with that. Thank you.
We just need to know 5 years from now if they're going to expect what they're going to expect.
Yeah. Go ahead, Jerry. Yeah. Yeah. Anything further? Go ahead, Supervisor Wohl.
Yeah, I want to mention
I think, just get it closer. Oh, okay. Is he dead?
No, I just want to bring up a discussion about the double X intersection. I know there have been a couple other discussions that been in the past about that. I know there have been a lot of accidents recently there, and just wanted to kind of bring that to the forefront.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Go ahead.
I'm jumping ahead to the July meeting. The first Thursday in July is the 4th of July. I probably plan on being off that day. Do you plan on just moving that meeting to the following Thursday? The reason I ask is WISDOT no longer supports their own person for highway safety. And I did talk to the firm about that presents at our unit highway safety about doing a presentation. He was busy today. I tentatively have him scheduled for the July 11th meeting, if that will be the plan, to come in and talk about it. But he wanted to know sooner than later if that was the plan, or we would move it or cancel it.
Yeah, I was looking at the county calendar today, and it had our meetings on July 11th for infrastructure, if anybody on staff knows otherwise, but that was my plan. We'll plan to proceed with July 11th.
Yeah, I'll keep him on schedule then.
Thank you. Anything further? Otherwise, we're up for agenda item number 9. Motion by Vol, second by Soibert. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All right, thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. Yep.
You and I had the same thought. Dan.
See you in a couple hours, Chris?
Yeah.